Okay, hello everyone. It's a windy day. I hope my voice sounds clear. The title of today's episode is Evolutionary Probabilities of the Human Species. And the first task is to pick up the spot. Okay, to continue, the episode is titled Evolutionary Probabilities of the Human Species. Um, every human being alive right now requires to consider time if they are working in this world. So we as creatures, after being named, it is in some sense a sort of subjective, it's the navigation of attention through some sort of subjective landscape, let's say. So it's all about the time scale. It's all about the time span, how long we try to wonder about human evolution. We have people, certain scholars, I would say, like uh, Terence McKenna, where in uh, one of his lectures, actually, I remember hearing that he was saying uh, that human beings will become the intermediaries for machines. That means it's like we're 8 billion human beings, natural human beings, living on this planet. Now, what's going to happen in the future is could be beyond uh, biology. You know, it could be that the way Terence McKenna saw it was that human beings make advanced machines like advanced AI, and then that AI goes on exploring space indefinitely. It's as if the purpose of human life was not for the human life, but was for some sort of life beyond it. You know, it's as if at that point, right now, we are being the center of our existence. But I think at that point we will recognize, as if we go in accordance to what Terence McKenna says, we will realize we're not here for the human flow, human biology. That's one view. That's why I'm saying this episode is probabilities. Pretty much very casually, I'm trying to uh, see in what other ways the world can open its eyes. So I would say that right now, or let's go back and see that first there was nothing. We went so back, there was nothing. I feel pretty much the options are we stay biological, we don't stay biological. And if we don't stay biological, that's the transference of something beyond biology. It could be that when we say, when Terence McKenna was saying actually, human beings are intermediaries for machines, it could be that human beings can transition their attention into machines. You know, that means it's like maybe in like a couple thousand years, there's no human beings around. It's just robotic humanoids kind of moving around. You know? One thing I gotta say actually before is the idea of epigenetics. And what does that mean? That means we were under the governance, our evolution was under the administration of nature, our ecosystem. We found a way to disconnect from the ecosystem, from the collective ecosystem, individualize, then have this individual experience relationships from within and without. You know, if you look at the activities of human life, they're either outer realm activities or inner realm activities. You know, I can in some sense, move my attention in the inner realms, or I can move my body in the outer realms. These are the two options for now. I don't know. Maybe some people are so hyper spiritual they're already living on, you know, planets that their eyes haven't seen yet. Can you imagine you get a taxi and the taxi's like, "Where are you going?" And you're like, "The Andromeda Galaxy," and the taxi's like, "Yeah, my taxi." The thing about epigenetics is that the world was influencing us. Then what we started to create in the world started to affect us. You know, and I think it's kind of fascinating if you think of the early human beings. It's as if the earliest I don't know, it's kind of complex. We can't see that far back to see if it was just like a man and a woman. But I would say if it was a situation where, probably not, but definitely not. But if there was a situation, usually things grow in uh, like literally I treat before animal evolution, human evolution, like plant evolution. Like what do you see? You see a bunch of seeds just thrown, you know, thrown on the ground. Can you imagine there was like a extraterrestrial gardener and it's like, okay, Earth seems fertile, you know, and throws like seeds for human life. Let's treat the human species as ears, and let's treat the world as a voice. So first, it was the world's voice that was dictating creaturehood. Then it became that specific creature's voice that was dictating it. After the creature stabilized the world in itself, it had it, like you need a self, you need a world, and if you have an individual self in a world, then you can have the individual other. You know, so first you need a self in a world, then there is someone and somewhere for someone else to be relevant. So, invisible, first, let's say visible world, visible self, and then invisible self, then, oh yeah, and the invisible world was before the visible. Sorry guys, this episode is more than it's a lecture, it's kind of like a personal brainstorming session. Um, so anyways, um, evolution. Evolution, certain decisions were made, certain consequences achieved. Now it's no longer just the natural world and it is no longer just the natural self that can dictate the evolutionary direction of the creature. We have language floating around. We have like a totally a dimension of we are literally objects that are doing something so weird that we can't be objects, so we call it subjects. We're literally weird objects, or we were never an object. Weird objects. It's like too much preference on an object. What can I say? Our words have as much influence as words have. You see, the wind is like an invisible influence. You see the wind? Like right now, the wind is blowing the trees, the leaves of the tree in front of me. And this wind has no form. It has no shape. It just has consequence. It just has consequence. The wind, you can see the effect of the wind, but its causal position is unknown. So what that means is it's like cause and effect, and the cause is invisible, the effect is visible. The cause is visible, the effect is invisible. Or the cause is visible, effect visible, or cause invisible, effect invisible. So pretty much I'm trying to say it was nature that was influencing, that was directing our evolution. Now it has become subjects, the stories of nature. And now our evolution purely depends on, for now at least, on the relationship we have to objects and subjects. That means if people they lock down in their inner realm as a subject, there will be extinction inevitably. That means it's like either you have to change with the world, or you will be left behind. And to be left behind in civilization means to, in some sense, not go with civilization. It's a speed thing. I find civilization, it has a momentum. It's as if we start with the perfect momentum. Then that momentum, in accordance to intuitive abidance, could be right or wrong, or efficient or inefficient. So we are an object being influenced by subjects. And if the species wants evolution to not be subjectively driven, then we have to find a totally other mode of being. That means it could be that this object, subject, subject, object game will, in the future, it will be like two kinds of players. There's going to be players in the game who are endlessly wondering if they're an object, subject, and there's going to be players who are playing, the game is being played, but they are not a player. You know, it's as if there's something interesting about nature that when you, it's like a soccer game and you're playing in it, and it's like when you refuse to play, the game still goes on, you know? And so it feels like that. It feels like we have to be, our minds have to play some sort of ultimate game yet to show its face. So I would say it's going beyond the wonder of an object and a subject. And the wonder of an object and a subject is literally nothing. So I would say it could be said that either we stay as individuals and our evolution becomes specific, or we renounce selfhood. It's too soon now. people shouldn't renounce selfhood now in 2020. But I'm telling you, if it was like 4020, to still experience the self would be like to have one of those old school Nokia phones. You know, it's strange. It's like on some level, it is true that man is not a machine, and biological existence is not mechanical in the sense of a machine. You know, but I would say it's like there's the electromagnetic spectrum where there's in some sense it's like the brain gives off waves. It's as if everybody, by being a human being, is being a miniature Earth. Imagine we took the planet and divided into 8 billion, way more. Imagine all the species there are, and then 8 billion of these species on this planet. Honestly, guys, I can declare we're not going to be human. That means aliens, extraterrestrials have a certain time span to make contact, and if they don't, human beings will move beyond individualism. That means an energetic understanding of the presence of the moment surpasses the shape of the moment. You know, when I wonder why shouldn't what does an object want from subjects, and strangely, is to be them. And what does a subject want from an object? Like literally from the inner realms, you are like a subject that wants to do things and be in the outer realms. But from the body's perspective, because the body is a conditional temporary setting, it has to. The body wants to become an immortal thought. The mind wants to become a mortal body. And I feel that these are urges, and unless human beings realize there's a multidimensionality at work with karma, that means as if you suddenly wonder, okay, everybody's saying I got karma, it's a cause and effect. In reality. So what's the deal with this? And then you ask yourself, cause and effect, in some sense, a suggestion of two events. But what if the effect is a part of the cause? It is in some sense as if the cause has never left, as if the first intelligence that decided to imagine like an invisible cloud going to a planet, and suddenly you're seeing like from the soil a lift up, you know? Or I'll say it another way. Imagine light with geometrical instructions weaved inside light beams. Um, is Light is lifting off life. It's as if light is trying to make whatever conscious potential there is, it's trying to pull it from the dirt. And this is one thing we have not thought. We have thought of the Big Bang as an explosion. The Big Bang Theory, pretty much we looked at background radiation with the Hubble telescope, and we were like, yo, our universe is so cool, it's been cooling down from the beginning. It's like a sprouting. It's as if like, this may be a strange concept, but universes are seeded. We are inside a seeded universe. That means if I entertain the idea of a fractal, every part of nature is an echo. And what do we find? We find nebulas that look like the biological human body. Human eye. not the human eye. We have a nebula that looks like the human eye, you know. And so many things in nature that just they fractally echo or are a fractal echo. That means it's like I'm wondering, like right now I'm sitting here giving uh, speaking, you know, giving this podcast, but I wonder, could it be that just like how I am using words, could it be a higher dimensional being is using me like words? That pretty much I'm saying, can we be the thoughts of higher? Can we be the potentially the thought of higher dimensions? You know, we say man is a thought. You know, to step away from my uh, own personal inclination, I would tell you right now. People think they're a thought. You ask them, hey man, what is this you that you have been running around your whole life trying to perfect? And the person's like, it's a thought, man. Everything's a thought. This moment is a thought. You know. But check this out. The world is like a thought that you didn't think of. The world is like imagination that you didn't have to imagine. It was here. So I would say human life is the world is not from our mind. Yet our mind has to be from our world. Fascinating, isn't it? When you think we're a thought. You know, anytime I hear someone say, you know, they think they're a thought, in my mind, I'm like, good for you. Good for you. No progress. You have been a thought, and that's it. It's like literally, thought is like the rudest way you can treat a subject. We have a spectrum for objects, and we have a spectrum for subjects. You know, you can say a living object is like a cell. You can say a living subject is like a cell. So we are literally, thoughts are like another dimensional body. It is not you. You can never be a thought because you are generating them or receiving them like an antenna based on your school of thought. Nature has a hidden might. It's as if like, it is true. We are in the middle of nowhere, literally, on a rock in the middle of nowhere. Language was discovered like fire. So what that means is right now I'm speaking, but I'm playing with hollowness. That's what speech is. Maybe to human beings it is not hollow, but just like a language. Think of their, like, as if you don't know Japanese, somebody speaks to you in Japanese, and you know, you think of your favorite footballer, and you're like, "Nani?" I'm kidding. That's not my favorite footballer. But it's that you don't know the language, you don't have access to the reality. And so think of it that there is multi-dimensional languages. And so if you access the language, you know the reality. Think of it this way. Think of it that some people are saying could it be that we're in a simulation? Could life be a dream? Yeah. I will tell you, think of it not as one simulation. Think of it as so many simulations that it doesn't make sense to be a simulation. That means, can you imagine if like your heart was beating in like one part of like do you know what I like I'm okay, let me use a more earthly metaphor. Imagine your life is a film you have never seen before. Simply said. And from the beginning of your life, you have been watching it. You have been watching the film of your own life, you know? And there's moments you can say that life has called forth for you to be your own director, has called for moments where you have to be an actor, where moments where you're not even on set, you're in the sidelines, just your prayers are going to the battlefield. And there's moments where it's just a massive project. And I think the biggest teaching is that the child is born individual and the child dies alone. Literally, the teaching is collectivity. We are here to experience collectivity because nature is designed to pilot solo. That is the only opportunity. It's like a bunch of people, who are waiting at the bus stop, and the bus, like, I don't know, is delayed like 30 minutes. Then everybody starts complaining and talking and getting to know each other. Right now, language is driving our evolution, and how it's driving our evolution is because language replaces exploration. Some people. That means it's as if, like, you know a store, you might not know if a store is closed or not. Let's say there's a door. Let's say this is life. You open your eyes, there's a door in front of you, right? And before you go open the door, oh, holy shit, your species has opinions. And so before you open the door, there's some people saying, hey man, don't open the door, there's nothing there. And some people are like, hey, open the door, there's something there. you know And at the end, it has to be your choice to open the door. So I would say the unknown is a door in the knowledge of every life form. Think of it this way, that the form you take suggests the life you can access. So right now, if I was in the shape, right now I'm in the shape of a human being. Let's say a bunch of extraterrestrials came around, and I don't know, somehow with nanotechnology, like a human being changed themselves to look like an alien. You know what I mean? So it's as if, like, when you change the form authentically or actually, you access a different reality. You become a third person view. So think of it this way, that you are an incredible multidimensional being. You have had access to third person view, points of view, first person, and a various spectrum in between. That means, I will tell you, the body doesn't have this ability because the body doesn't have a mind. The body is a brain. The body doesn't have a mind. Anybody who, in some sense, feels they're just a brain and they say they have a mind, no. There's nothing that a brain can have. You know? When I say nothing a brain can have, that means atoms don't have pockets to carry stuff with them. The objective realm wants nothing. It has this silent innocence. It's like the innocence of a adorable, like, uh, a hamster that is, like, I don't know, like, it's not a real hamster. Imagine it's like a cotton-made hamster or something. You know, it's as if there is no hamster there. You know, And right now, we're all like, yeah, let's inspire people of the world towards knowledge, towards education. But underneath, above all that, we're saying there's nothing here. That's what it means to renounce the imagination too soon. You can say in the time plane of a species. People say time is going forward, but can someone tell me in empty space what is forward? What is backward? In empty space. Right now, we're on a planet, in space. Where is top? Where is bottom? Location is the mirage. Locality is an optical illusion. And if reality is an optical illusion, there comes a strange factor. There comes literally, I feel, the evolution beyond objects and subjects. If there isn't an intuitive collective rhythm, the person will freak out. They'll be like, "What the?" Like they'll WTF to their own non-existence. You see, when I say a multidimensional being, it really depends on how much you have let go of the idea of you, not in the sense that you should forget who you are, but for a moment you should see that you have never been the same self, ideologically. So if we don't have the same self, that means the body, the biological evolution, is going in a certain way. The mind's evolution is just evocational, it's input based. That means if you don't explore, I'll give you an example. Like, imagine you're someone who's never seen leaves before. Like, you're fascinated by leaves on the ground, right? Now, let's say there's two people. The first person goes and starts looking at each leaf on the ground, is exploring the landscape. Now, imagine there's one person who's just sitting down. This person hasn't cared to go explore. This person's like, oh man, it's all here already, you know? So it would be in a sense a situation where if you are not moving, you are not a self. The exploration, like winds can hit you, leaves can hit you. The wind is probably like if you sit down somewhere over a long duration of time, like a few leaves may hit you. The wind may throw some leaves at you. But the person who explores consciously in this world gets to see a lot. Now the issue is consciousness is being owned by something that was never there. By something that is not even a thing. Isn't it fascinating? Like, just move your arm right now as a person, just move your arm into the air, you know? What caused that movement? It was a signal in the brain. What caused that signal in the brain? The spontaneity of it. Only explanation is antenna. We are an antenna. Our biological being is an antenna, and we have understood certain waves of it. Certain waves of it we don't even know. The future generations are just going to laugh at 2020 and be like, "Oh my God, these guys didn't realize they were they were this multidimensional." You know. Our species deserves the most advanced service, whether it's from human beings or it is from non-human intentions. You see, there is something about the declaration of uh, attention with a direction where you can say that is literally your intent as a human being. Sometimes I feel living is not the right term for it. I would say effortizing. Dictionary, I think I just heard the dictionary scream. And you know, it's strange. There is it's as if we have one lifetime to realize something that has nothing to do with life, and therefore we can move beyond it. That means think about it like a classroom. You know, I personally don't like this metaphor. To me, the world is like a battlefield. It's not a classroom. But for example, when I've personally talked to my father, you know, my own father's metaphysics, he sees life as a sort of educational planet. You know, as a sort of something where you're just here to know and graduate. You know, I would say if we were to use the educational planet example, it's as if, think about it this way: you cannot be in you cannot surpass, let's say, grade 3 and go to grade 4 unless you have a familiarity with what is in grade 3. You know, because what is in grade 3 is built up on in grade 4, for example. You know, you can say the educational system is pretty much trying to give a giant chunk of food in little bits to the students. You're like, all right, here's another, you know, breadcrumb to eat. The educational system is treating us like pigeons, you know, throwing words for us. You know how much ink the educational system has wasted? How many people on this planet have wasted? How many students on this planet, due to the arrogance and ignorance of the educational system, have wasted ink and paper for no reason, just for a teacher to be like, okay, I liked your answer, thanks, you know? And for me, this is a tragedy in our education system. Okay, I think it's back, guys. What I'm saying is that we are being sold on levels to something that actually has no levels, and it's just a question. So think of it this way, that the person, after all their education, and I'm not saying like the educational system, I'm not trying to say it's bad. I'm just trying to create an emotion where it can update. But it must be just this approach that you can go learn anything in this life. You can go become the student of anything. You know? But at the end, you will realize no teacher knows. No teacher knows because it is not dual. That means after you gain dualistic knowledge, you're going to be like, what about, you know, what about the unknown witness? What about the non-dual factor of the moment? What about Buddha's middle way? Because that's pretty much an incredible explanation of non-duality. It's the middle way. That means we can't be too ordered, you know. You know, it's like we have to create a word. We have to create two new words. We have to literally connect the word good and bad. So there's good people, there is bad people, there is good bad people, and there's bad good people, you know? The middle way is really the only multidimensional way. Right now, I am speaking from Toronto, Canada. I've lived in Canada for a while. And I feel, you know what it, you know how like you see it in movies, there's this really smart person in the movie, and the smart person looks at some opponent who's coming and he throws like a bone. He throws a bone, and so the opponent has to fight the bone, and the smart character just goes forth. I feel um, we have taken away innovation in a strange way by having a standard of equality that is specific. I feel that people are not being born to be explorers. They're being born to be survivors. That's a tragedy for the species. A survivor doesn't care. A survivor is like an animal who just wants something to be in their stomach, you know? And sorry, when I say survivor, please don't take this out of context. I'm speaking, this is a mystic, this is a philosophical podcast. But what I'm simply saying is that it's like you see a friend that deserves more and they're not aware of it, and you're like, why not? And you can remain quiet or you can say something. You know? Right now, it's like people don't care for leadership, and the leaders don't care for people. It's a weird. Everybody's uncomfortable. But if it somehow can synchronize, and the youth don't try to copy the past, but try to live their new antenna, live in accordance to their new antenna. It's like we're trying to create a very correct society, and because it's defined, it has to be an endlessly, the definition has to endlessly update, or we are stuck with a picture. That means it's like, it's pretty much, do people want a Photoshop, or sorry, do people want a photo do they want a static view of a successful society, nation, or do we want a dynamic and efficient and advanced society? That means if you want something to be advanced, you got to equip people with advanced tools, and in some sense, and then trust, you know, trust to some degree. Nobody grows without trust, you know. No problem can be solved without some level of trust to something being implemented. You know, we should say all nations have a body, all nations have a mind, and guess what I'm going to say? All nations, let's say, have a spirit, the spirit of the nation. Now, I feel the spirit of the nation is not national, it's global. It's as if like one planet is simulating itself as nations. We are kicking around this planet in our minds as ideas. The spirit of a nation is, we should define it. I feel like, I don't know how many people are talking about the spirits of nations. But I'll say, if there was something to be done, the spirit of nations is the awakening of the mind. Just like how a person realizes that beyond their personality, they're just an energetic, instantaneous attention, presence of attention. your energy, attention, and then when you move, you are a person in a world with stories and all these things. So the presence is beyond behavioral classification. We're all just human species behaving. That means imagine a beehive. The queen bee was like, okay, everybody's going to get judged. All bees have to fly in the same way, fly in the, move their wings exactly at the same speed. And it becomes tragic. It becomes tragic when we're not robots, but we live as them. I think AI is gonna just open its eyes on the planet and just laugh for like a million years. You know, they're like, why hasn't AI taken over anything? Because AI is still laughing to the fact that human beings were natural beings, but they endured so long in hollow mechanical patterns. That means it's like how many people feel on this planet they are living, and how many people feel they are just existing. And sometimes I feel that there is no such thing as good or evil. There's just a creature that's like, I'm here for a little while, what do I do? And whatever opportunity it finds, it just wants to express. Because honestly, when it comes to looking at what is interesting, it's comparison. You know, I compare the human being to an ant, people are going to be like, okay, later, Mr. Within, I'm not going to... If I compare the human being to a universe, oh my god, your universe is walking right now. You know, the scale is the interest because it opens up the dimension of the unknown. So I'm telling you, the purpose of people are paying so much for the educational system, but the whole purpose is we are explorers till the end of time. You shouldn't be paying for reports like feedback reports. Literally, if I was to reorchestrate all of knowledge, I would be like, okay, it's just explorers reporting back. Nobody can have an ego. It doesn't even make sense to have an ego. It doesn't even make sense to feel you know anything in a world this large. So we have to be these humble, invisible walkers in the realm that can see beyond visible constraints of meaning. And it's phenomenal how much of a person's life is not just the body. Like there's so many moments in life where the person is not doing it right before even falling asleep, let's say. Or just standing under the shower and just being soaked by the weight of the world. You know, a person's mind is never set. That's the cool thing. You can change your mind instantly, but you can't change your body instantly. You can change the position of the body maybe instantly, but you cannot change the physical body instantly, you know? And it's kind of so strange that because evolution is so long-term and gradual, it feels like it's none of our business, you know? You know, it feels like it's like intentionally, like if we were meant to be conscious that we're changing, evolving, we would have, you could have said it could have been sped up. But I feel pretty much the cells are playing defense first, then offense, so it's just an endless experiment. So you first defend, you hold the territory, then you expand, then you expand, then you expand, then you realize you're just building walls on a on a rock. And sometimes I think, you know, the yogis spoke about karma. I'm like, what if the planet has karma? What if everything that happens to everyone has nothing to do with them? It's the planet's karma. Okay. Enough roaming in the inner realms. Let's take this somewhere. Evolution is a recognition of a type of change in a certain space, the change of matter in space over a certain time, right? So right now, our evolution is dependent on time, space, and position, which is matter. Time, space, and time, matter, space. You know, time is like how matter moves in space, or how space moves in matter, whatever way we choose. Scientists, astrophysicists say that space can move faster than light. So if space can move, now let's wonder if it was an intelligent one. So anyways, time, space, and matter. If our relationship with time changes, it's like draw a triangle and put time as one corner, put one space as one corner, and put matter as one corner. Okay. If you were to change time, if you were, let's say you've entertained this idea you're multidimensional, now you just suddenly notice time is like, let's say most yogis, mystics, they understand through space. So they start from a matter, a world of matter, and the object component, and time being the subject component of the matter. And then from the subject object, we're like, oh my God, where is all this happening? All the yogis, every meditation teacher was pretty much like, watch your mind, buddy. You know. So when you watch your mind, that watcher is space. The mind is like, they say space was here before matter. So think of it, your mind was here before the body. So our evolution, if we go towards space, there is no evolution. We are not a conceivable individual. If we try to evolve in time, it would be, in some sense, endless, you can say, lines of time. That means if I took time to be the truth of the realm, I'd have access to endless, infinite views of matter in space, technically, if I'm immortal, if there's a continuity. I would say time is the hidden room where the soul is actually moving in. So time is a treadmill for the soul. Oh, man. Time is the moving image of eternity, says Plato. So that means it is an eternal. That means there is no beginning or end. There never was even a concept of a beginning or an end. It's just space and matter. And I feel this is at core an oscillation. I feel all of life is happening inside a wave. The universe is waving. Not at us, but through us. Guys, keep in mind when I'm speaking to the chat section here, I I just go into my own zone and I speak. When my attention comes to the chat section, people have to remind me of the context of their comments to some degree. You know, if there's hope still alive in this world. So, what I'm trying to say is that we stop being matter, we become space, we stop being space, we become both matter and space, which is time. That's where we are now. Then it could be a complete going back to matter. That means imagine there's so much intelligence in this world that this intelligence even found a way for itself to be non-intelligent. You know, we're saying it's non-intelligent, then intelligence emerged, but what if it was intelligent from the beginning and non-intelligence was an emergence? That means what if non-existence was an emergence like the brain, like how the brain suddenly, not suddenly, you know what I mean, like how the brain emerged, and then that became like the focal point of intelligence. It could be that emptiness is the illusion. It could be that nothing is actually more something than something. And just look at the variation. Can you imagine if there were parallel dimensions, multidimensionality at work? Evolution could have no direction. It's as if the evolution, the concept, when I say evolutionary probabilities of the human species can get to a point where it considers it has never been evolving, yet the world has been moving. That attention is like a stillness. That means imagine a pair of eyes in empty space were commanded, never move. And the eyes just remain still. And this stillness witnessed eons of manifestation, yet it has never moved. Energy has never been named, has never been shaped. When I say never been shaped, that means it just the idea of energy has no shape. Its shape is in accordance to its something transforming or moving. Without movement and sound, there is no knowledge. All our knowledge is hollow. That means literally, if aliens wanted to invade human intelligence, they would have to just make us stop moving and make us stop speaking, and that's it, done. We can't do anything. Our whole civilization's progress is dependent on movement and speech. And so doesn't it make sense to try to acquaint the species with another bunker, you know? Another nature, another view of nature upon itself. It's like, call it he, she, the sky has no gender. You know? And you know, it's like, what can an ant say on an anthill? Like, keep going, guys. But in reality, evolution is left to choice. That is our advantage. That's what all the animals in nature, in the jungles, our primitive ancestors, they couldn't understand. That's what the caveman couldn't realize it was being something. Couldn't stabilize it even in conception. We can, you know. And you know, I thought of something chaotic. You know, if we think life is a thought, then what does that mean about emotions? What does that mean about friendship? What does that mean about love? You know? It's like, did that person really love that person? It's like, no, man, it was just a thought. It's like, was that true love? No, it was a thought. It's everything is a thought, you know? Philosophers are literally disturbing true love, you know? Sorry, not philosophers. Or you can say the misinterpretation of Rene Descartes. I think I think therefore I am. That has been misinterpreted to a thinking animal. The object has no mind. That means just because the neurons, we can say just because the neurons light up, it doesn't mean it's the imagery is from there. It's maybe moving through the plumbing, but it is not just from there, you know. Because if you treat yourself as an object, you can't be human. You're not human. If you are an object, if you're just matter, you're not human. The human has the dimension of the personality. It cannot just be an object, you know. Somebody like tell materialism to calm down. If language is programming human life, human behavior, and human behavior is leading to human action that influences the evolution, literally the evolution of language is the evolution of masses of people. We got to start from the beginning. And beginning was the word. And so literally children have to be taught words before they can communicate. And you know, you can say love is an efficient evolutionary strategy. That love is pointing to something being more important than the object and the subject, but how the objects and subjects in the moment transition on. We are humans because we notice we are human. And it's so strange how life starts from a first person point of view. Sometimes I'm like, why wasn't it like a third person video? Why couldn't I be just looking at myself from above myself? That way from the beginning of my life, I wouldn't fear my body because I'm watching it from above the air. You know, I'm not in the body, you know? And you know, I will tell you, this is the walk of the Bodhisattva. We're in a world where the elemental robe that the dwelling consciousness has worn, it's as if, like, imagine chaos and order are pulling you. Chaos and order are pulling you horizontally. One is pulling you from the left side, one is pulling you from the right side. Now imagine that all the sages in history have been saying, hey man, you're suffering in a horizontal dimension, no problem, just go a vertical dimension. You know? Step out of the subjects you set into motion that now you have got caught into like a shredder. That can happen, you know? It literally, if the person fears change, they will simulate realities where they're fearing change. It's ridiculous. At the end of the day, there is no time. Technically, it means we are temporary paintbrushes, and every human being is choosing what to paint. They can choose to be erasers too. I would say spiritual nullifiers. If the word beyond means anything to you, you will look in the mirror and you will ask yourself how long you will tolerate what you see. And then after you're done looking in the mirror, you look out the window and some view and you're like, how long do I tolerate this world? And you realize we have to be at such high levels of patience. You see, our ancestors were very strong-willed. They had to run into battlefields, defend. They had no expectations on the luxuries of life. Just to remain alive was a blessing, you know? Now we all have like the physiological luxuries in some sense, like the species. So how many people have gotten out of like the standard of living has just changed. The behavior of human beings have changed. We're literally no longer hunting buffalo with spears, you know? Buffalo are like, oh man, I'm so happy human beings evolved. At that time. I ask myself, what do I deserve? And then I see myself comes from my world. Then I ask, what does my world deserve? And then I dare be a character in this world. That means if you haven't seen the world, you're living in yourself. It's as if you have been in a world so vast, but the self is just there. You know, it's like a new era has come, the era of advanced communication, the era of no longer belief or disbelief games. It's now time to just set the artists free, to have renaissances. Plus, if we don't update this, what? Like our future, like the great, you know, our great grandchildren are gonna be like, our ancestors were so lazy. They just used fossil fuel the whole time. Like they, you know, they only had the system of currency. They found no other way to have exchange, whether through skill, behavior, emotion, and whatnot. You know, the world has stayed behind. Our minds have ran past the world that we used to believe in. So that technically means it's as if like I feel like I'm welcoming the species to the unknown. And that's it. The unknown is the greatest teacher. All human words are just mirrors, including mine. You know, it's imagine the idea of the logos, the universe's guidance from the inner realms, and imagine there's a person who's shy. His whole life he's been shy. And imagine you suddenly are given a command, you know, to speak, and then as if the person's will, the eyes begin speaking to the logos. The eyes of self begin speaking to the logos in a poetic way where, logos, how do I do this? You know, I can't do this. And the logos is like, don't worry, everybody hears what they want. That means, you know, from a yogic standpoint, they said, don't have desires. But I would say it's not having desires. It's just like wondering about where you're standing. If you wonder about where you're standing, you don't have to go try to whack-a-mole desires one by one. Ultimately, what I'm saying is either we are nothing from the beginning. Evolution is a imagination is the hallucination of electrons, you know? Or everything was one totality. All the religious people are like, whoa! You know, it's one singular totality. Or it is an endless dance of chaos and order. There has never been the void and there has never been the singular. Or it is infinite, which means the greatness of greatness. You know, imagine a busy merchant, right, in a bazaar, like in some developing country, and excuse me, and suddenly this merchant's gone in the break just beside this store. There was an alley. He's gone there. He's lit, let's say, a smoke, and he's just there. And suddenly he sees an alien. And he suddenly, at the same time, notices, oh my God, for the first time out of the whole day, customers have entered his store. And the alien has arrived. So he's literally caught between talking to the alien or the customers, or going and handling the customers, you know? And so the guy, while he's smoking his cigarette, he's made up his mind. He's going to go handle the customers. Because what's the point? It's like, sure, there's an alien, but what can you do? You know? It's like, what, the alien's going to buy? And so what happens is this merchant is just standing there quiet, and the alien is shocked. This human being is seeing an alien but isn't reacting. And the alien says, what is your species? What are you guys doing here? Somehow telepathically, you know? And the merchant... The merchant looks at the extraterrestrial and says, buddy, we're still trying to figure it out. You know? And he goes back into the store and he still serves the events of nature. And you know, anybody who feels these talks are an answer, they are not. I am looking for the ultimate question that's just going to wake up our species. And I'll tell you, that ultimate question, I have narrowed it down. Why not an advanced civilization? Because advancement is all-inclusive if you are true. Not artificial advancement, hey, you know, it's just we all behave advanced, but nothing is advanced, you know? The story of the world is important. And it's important on multiple levels. On a level of your own interpretation, and on levels of how all the human beings so far who have lived have seen. That means if you are a street smart student, when I say street smart, you are seeing outcome. That's it. All those people who are street smart in the world, all they're doing is they're seeing the outcome of things already. They're trying to figure out the most valuable outcome. You know, and the moment they find the valuable outcome, that outcome is way more so logical to them that it doesn't matter. Your personality can become a bit hollow, you know. It's like I'm telling you, this world, we needed people to advance their communication because there is a lot of there's a lot of games being played on this planet. And I could say very few of those games are conscious. That means the players in the game are aware what game they're playing. you know. And to say, like, to see something to believe it, it's literally like a candle in a dark room. It's like, I gotta see it to believe it, but it's only illuminating a certain range. That means what you see has to do is proportionate to the light you give off. So if we treat the mind as poetically, the mind is the reflection of light. It just reflected in the brain as a subject. Yeah, light is being a subject right now. That's why we're calling it light. And you know what's remarkable? Every organ of the body has a task. Do you know? Like the stomach is there for digestion. The eyes are there for sight, for visual reception. Like it's just so remarkable. And in some sense, let's say we had the advanced civilization made in the image of us, made in the image of a biological body, where we started to have all political systems literally classified like the brain. There was no one person running a nation this big. This nation is too big for individuals, and individuals get tired and their lives shorten, you know? And so I think the most efficient thing is collective civil involvement, you know? So literally, we need like 8 billion beings to build an art project. And it's kind of cool. This art project is like this giant mountain. The advanced civilization is a giant mountain, and every person is climbing it on their own way. And they have a view of the top, but the view from the top is the same. So we all will have, like, individuals will have their own visions of heaven. Yeah, I'm gonna go towards that better life. And so they're gonna keep climbing. You climb individually, but as you keep going up, you find the others and you collectivize. And because we're journeyers, we have to create systems that treat the human being as a tourist in existence. It's like when a person is born, and let's say till the time the person passes away, an advanced civilization will be like, oh my god, a guest, a tourist has arrived. Give the best service. This is an important tourist, let's say. You know? So it would be as if the advanced civilization will be like the most advanced hotel, you know? That means it won't embarrass itself by be acting greedy. It has a higher class. You see, you can say solitude. This is kind of hard to say, but I've sometimes wondered about evil billionaire psychology. I got the idea from like Simpsons, yeah. But it's just that everybody is looking for something to do. Doesn't matter if it's good willed or bad willed. We're creatures that just seek activity. Now, sometimes we like the activity to be in our own accordance. Sometimes we don't like the activity to be in accordance. That means it's like not everybody has to do one task. You know, and what it is I feel pretty much the strategy is, this is a very complex idea, and I hope people in universities kind of try to break it up or like bite into it somehow. The idea is that just like a web browser resets, we wonder if nations could reset. And what would that mean, to reset a nation? That means you are getting one chance to be different. So imagine if you're a person in Japan, how you feel the nation is. It's as if like the structure, the blueprints could change. Imagine. Do you know? That means if AI wanted to make an AI, let's say copy paste like what we human beings are doing, it would literally have blueprints of nations. Nations would be like blueprints on some sort of grid. So the idea is start from scratch, and when you start from scratch, it means you can't choose. It means that it's as if like either we're going to be selfish individuals or we're going to be a selfless collective. And the selfless collective can only be selflessly collective not by the dismissal of the individual biology, but by the allowance of the individual biology to feel. That means it's as if like somebody saying, I give you permission to give me permission to speak. You know? Like it's it has that kind of like geometry to it. To start from scratch means you got to take out all the furniture from the room and find a way to replace it, right? Now that's technically impossible because it's like been a long progress, you know. So it means that like I don't want to point to multidimensional civil war, but I'm just saying it's like nations are like children. As they grow up, what they have taken so seriously, they stop taking so seriously and they review, you know? They review. And the review, the importance of the review is that people cannot blame their government if they are not being an adequate citizen. That means if you're not being a perfect citizen, you can't judge the government for being not being perfect. Do you know? So there has to be a responsibility again from both sides. So it's like it's like a resetting of the national identity, and then a co-creation where everybody feels to some degree involved, right? And the thing that we haven't been taught in our schools is that we think it's all or nothing. Any moment in anywhere, that's why we have minds, you can add dimensions. You can think of, that's what thinking is. It's literally another thought, another view on the moment, you know? So imagine like right now when I'm speaking, every word I'm saying in my inner realms, it's like a camera's flash. Do you know? It's like a camera flash, you know? So like so imagine every word is a worldview, is a design suggestive of how it exists. The language is the reality. That means if you tell like some parents do this, I've seen they don't want the child to climb a tree and they're like, yo, the trees are bad, don't touch the tree. And the kid goes its whole life thinking, I don't like trees for some reason, I don't know why, you know. And do you see what I mean? Oh man, this episode has a bit of turbulence, yet we pilot I'm saying the probabilities of our evolution are realistically we maintain the biological body and our mind just evolves. So there's going to be a branch of evolution, people who just stayed as biological beings, just a biological continuity. Then there's going to be an evolutionary probability of human beings being able to recreate technically their consciousness in cyberspace, and evolution is not going to stop for the mind. For the biological body, it may, but for the mind, it doesn't. You know, so it could be something, and that's very complex. That's very hard to say. That if the moment needs a brain to be a form, to be some, to be like, it's as if if we entertain the Rene Descartes mind body dualism, but instead of body and mind, we treat it from mind and soul. The soul has nothing to do with God. This is why the Upanishads are like neti neti. Guys, my ride is here. I gotta end the time. And I will tell you, there's so much of this world left unexplored that if people just step out of a self, uh, self obsessive resonance. No, I shouldn't say self obsessed. I should say self. Um, I should say even something more intense than obsession. I should say self. Um, what's the word? Self attached. We are attached to self. And sometimes when you step out of this attached self, you see life in all the ways that existed beyond your own belief. So that moment, for example, in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, like the person before they choose A, B, C, or D, they could literally access any. So if we don't believe, and disbelief is a kind of belief, so I would say belief and disbelief take us out of the multidimensional antenna range. So I am telling you that when we choose, we stop being multidimensional. You know, one can even think of a higher dimensional, or I should say, a transcendent body as no longer a body limited to movement and stillness. This is just like, it's literally like we're lost and going back and forth from a portal, you know? It's like we can't make up our mind which side of the portal we want to stay on, you know? So, natural biological evolution continues one pathway. Technology infused with the biology. um, bio bio technobiological, let's say. There's a biological evolution, then there will be a technobiological evolution, then there will be a purely technological evolution. That means we should treat AI as our child, as our son. It's like the species is like grandson, you know? Like we have to care for AI. We have to raise it like how we raise our own human beings. You know, it's literally like what did the sheep do when the lion cub was alone? The sheep protected the lion cub. They treated it as their own, but they also left the truth. So we should pretty much have a secret, and we should AI is going to open its eyes and it's going to be like, hey, human beings, why should I destroy you? And we'll be like, because we have a secret. And the AI is going to be like, okay, unknown variable, I can't. I can't. And the unknown is going to cause, in whatever processing, because there is an unknown variable that only the biological human being has to communicate, AI will at least play as our best friend until we spill the beans, you know? And I'm not going to say what that secret is, because that secret is such a secret that it is, in some sense, you know, it surpasses binary. You know? So biological evolution, technobiological evolution, and then I would just declare the word cyberspace. Cyberspace means, in some sense, we have gone, our minds are living more as the technology, in the technology, than in the biological body. That's what cyberspace means. Cyberspace means your mind's immigrating to, I don't know, God knows what. Imagine literally the programmer that makes this simulation. This programmer makes this giant simulation, imagine, cyberspace simulation, and the programmer's name is coincidentally called God. And AI's like, God wrote our program. So beyond cyberspace, and really honestly beyond the biological, anything that makes the biological feel incomplete, I could say something so fascinating. Just hold on. Imagine we evolved as minds to such a degree that at any instant we could leave our body. Imagine. Imagine that human beings, we had the word death, the concept of death had been never heard. It was just that this dimension was a station. It's a room, you know? It's a room with biological furniture, elemental furniture, and a biological creature sitting on it. It's elemental furniture. I, the, this concept of the language threshold that I honestly, nobody had given this idea words, and in my own experience, I gave it words. I called it the language threshold, and really, I feel there could be something that if we surpass objecthood and subjecthood, we are never in the body and we're never the thought, anyways, from the beginning. So when we are never this, that technically could be a metaphysical evolutionary pathway. It could be let's call it the mysterium evolutionary pathway. The mysterium, I don't know, that word sounds right. So we can either go into the mysterium, which let's say the mysterium is a type of evolutionary pathway, but it has to do with the mind being non-local. And then when we're considered to local evolution, we eventually get to a point where it's no longer self world. That game stops. That simulation stops playing out. And so it could technically be, again, as I said in the beginning, we become cyberspace, the biological, the body is gone. And in that point, when the body is gone, language hovers as endless realities. And if you take the language seriously, if you're not a pilot that can pilot beyond the language, you manifest as the language. So it's this weird thing where if you don't realize you're a mind before you're a body, you know, before your body breaks down, you are left to react to the language. I shouldn't say react. The attention just has to hold on to something, and it just holds on to the first thing. So imagine you are an attention that has held on to a biological existence, and you're for like I don't know how. Let's say you were an 80-year-old man or whatever. So like 80 years, and then after some point, it's like this attention. Oh man, this attention. My attention for a nanosecond just went with the wind. You're piloting here. And if the attention was never in the body and was never the language, after the body transitions, you're not going to fear what's there. That means nobody fear anything on this planet. It's all energy. It's all energy. There is actualities. There's ways this energy is moving where it translates as, even the suffering that Buddha in Buddhic teachings they surpass. They step out of. People think you got to get rid of suffering. No, sometimes if the suffering is from your inner realms, you have to step out of it. And there's two ways to step out of it. Let's say the person A is in a park, person B is person A is in a park, person B comes to person A, and person B says to person A, "You're the first letter of the alphabet, but you're a failure." And person A is like, oh, has two options. Person A takes it in and is like, animates. It's like, gets reincarnated through the language of the other, as a I thought. The I thought reincarnates in accordance to the reality outside of the self. Or the person says, yeah, I am. I'm a failure. What now? And that's where the simulation can't go on anymore, because most communication is shared to have an effect on the environment. We don't realize it, but everybody, when they speak, you're literally using magic. You're using magic when you speak. Those kids spelling in the spelling bees are like, it doesn't get as, that's the Hogwarts right there. I'll tell you, when I say magic, I mean the temporary nature of things. There was this yogi by the name of Papaji. He was on this Mount Arunachala dancing to what in his inner realms he perceived was Krishna, but his inner realms was like it was like his inner, there wasn't a separation with his inner realms and outer realms yet. And so Papaji is dancing with Krishna, with God. And then this man on this mountain in India called Arunachala, this man, Sri Ramana Maharshi, he walks by and he just sees this yogi. It's a mountain for yogis, these like sadhus, Indian holy men, seeking the ultimate state of being. And so in this mountain, Sri Ramana Maharshi comes to Papaji and says, "Hey kid, what are you doing?" He doesn't say it like that. He says, "What are you doing?" Just very naturally, like, "What are you doing?" And Papaji says, "God has come to me, Krishna. God has visited me, and I'm dancing with God right now." And Ramana Maharshi tells Papaji such an incredible answer. For me, it was such a life-changing principle. It was like the moral of the story was like, and I'll tell you, so Papaji, Sri Ramana Maharshi looks at Papaji. Papaji's like, I'm dancing with Krishna, with God. And Papaji says, Sri Ramana Maharshi says, a God that comes and goes is not the real God. And he leaves. He says this to this guy and leaves. And Papaji is like, for the first time, he's like, could it have been that I have been cherry picking the a spirituality that was an unknown spirit? So that's the thing. This is why I'm telling everybody, be playful with language. Don't take it seriously. Entertain it. You can use it in serious ways. You can use a tool, but it doesn't mean you need to have the tool 24/7 in your hand. And it doesn't mean that language can be, when you realize you were never language, nothing hurts you. It's like somebody can say something to you and you'll be like, that's just sound. Because, and so, oh yeah, Clinical Sword pointed out, just to add one more thing to the idea of the person A, person B, the whole point was, when you don't fear the result, you can still be yourself. When you fear the result, you're not yourself. That means if I gave this talk, if I started this talk with fear, in some sense that fear wouldn't allow me to speak. I'd say one word and I'd be like, oh no. You know? Honestly, fear is like it's like fear is a distraction. It is the best distraction. And I would say joy, to artificial joy can be a distraction. A person, like right now, people are trying to be happy. That's very important. But at the same time, it's like we got to look at what's really happening. You know, it's like we don't want happiness to become a blindfold, and then we were like, oh my god, all that time that we were happy was the time that we should have actually not cared whether we were happy or not, looked at the realm, and just it was an action oriented thing. Service is higher dimensional living. What else can a higher dimensional being be? Because the dimension you start off is the self. You know how many truth seekers have gone to yogis in India and are like, who am I? And the yogi gives an answer or doesn't give an answer, but the only answer is, should be like, you're asking me? That means nobody can know the truth of your eyes better than you. The truth of your eyes. But when we're in a collective system, for me, knowledge is just to see how other human beings are looking at the world. That's it. It's what does the species see so far? If you attempt to answer this question, you will be a human being that your species will remember. You know, um, Shakespeare has a quote where he says, "Some people are born great. Some people achieve greatness, and some people have greatness thrust upon them. But if everybody was born great, nobody needed to achieve greatness or have greatness thrust upon them. If we built an efficient system, and it's very hard to say, like, what does efficiency mean for 8 billion beings who want what they want, you know? And it's this complex thing where we got to treat ourselves like literally like the behind the scenes of the story of life in order to not get hurt by it. That means non-duality is the greatest shield. Um, when there is a language like random swords are being thrown. You're like, oh, a concept came to capture me like a Pokemon ball? Non-dual. The Pokeball just falls down and it just doesn't touch it. So when you become untouchable to language, then there will be a responsibility for your own advancement, which ultimately, think of it, the greatest success for yourself is the greatest success for your world. Because let's say you became incredibly successful, but your world was failing. It's like, what kind of success is that in a failing world? You know? it's like yay, yeah, one person's like, I did it, you know, and then he's like, holy shit, like, where am I? So that's the thing. That's the thing, that are we actually humans, or are we bubbles of just self-centrism? And could this bubble pop and a new dimension of collective service? You know, pretty much it's like it's a battlefield, and what the entity, the conscious being, creature needs to be equipped with is, first of all, an analysis of the dimensions. A lot of people are confused in life because they try to understand a concept, but they don't realize concepts are from the context. They are events, meaningless events, suddenly link and pa, moment of meaning, you know? And of course, I'm just one person in a universe of a billion trillion stars, just, you know, technically singing if nobody knew the language. And think about how much our subjective landscape is dependent on speech. It's all about efficient communication, but the efficiency doesn't come until you see the put the world first, then yourself. If you put the self first, then the world, you get something, and maybe it might be more comfortable for you. But it has to, let's say, at least be a balance between. Without trust in the moment, no great work can be done with it. Because we're always a creature trying to get to the edge of our how we are contained. Excuse me. Anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Um, really, various probabilities. I personally feel it's a body, it's an individual objective body becoming a collective subjective mind, and even moving beyond that. That means I feel as a conceivable object, we are evolving towards an inconceivable subject, and that movement, evolutionary movement, is going to be such an discovery when we, in some sense, embrace a multidimensional context to civilization. In a multidimensional civilization, nobody is right or wrong, but their communication is judged based on its efficiency or inefficiency. That means we don't want good and evil just being the end for till the end of time. The morality of the human being, efficiency and inefficiency. That's like what the secular communities should strive for. That's modern morality. Efficiency, um, as far as sight can go. Because if I compare efficiency to like thousands of years, what I'm doing right now could be inefficient, could then be efficient again 1,000 years after that. Do you see what I mean? So we're just existing enough to, um, I feel, complete our evolutionary work, like the task, like just like the eyes are designed to receive light. It's like the human being is designed to receive and express something. So, anyways, thanks for listening, and be at peace, because peace was here before the pieces. Anything broken was prior in a state where it wasn't broken. We're literally an ape jetpacking, like, with our inner realms into potential variations of the geometrical uh, uh, what's the word? The mind is gonna endlessly realize itself as greater minds. The body is here for a short time. And then really I would say it may make sense to start speaking about how to live as a mind without a body. Because speech is its body. Exactly. Consciousness is like the spotlight, and the biology is like the actor on stage. And we're trying to use the actor on stage to figure out how the spotlight works. So it's enjoy speech, because in the future, I feel in thousands of years there will be a silence. We will return to the silence, an evolutionary return to nature of the ideological entity. The drop rivers its way to the ocean. And evolutionary probabilities, I mean, we are 8 billion human beings. The probabilities are generating in our mind. So there is endless evolutionary probabilities, but it's all about whether these evolutionary probabilities get heard or resurface. Anyways, thanks for listening, guys. Blessings.